Hello there, and welcome to instead of an in-person session, wanted to record the stewardship session that I was going to lead at the conference this year. So, hello, my name is Christy Coulter, and I am a consultant here at Apex Legacy Consultants. We are based out of the Twin Cities in Minnesota, but we do support organizations and donors all over the country. And one of the things that we see a lot of conversation around with our nonprofit partners is stewardship. Stewardship, particularly around donors that have perhaps the capacity to do a non-cash gift during life, or they are a great estate giving prospect. And so, what does that stewardship process look like as we work toward the ask and the gift commitment from these donors? And then, how do we steward them after? And we'll spend some time talking about a variety of different pieces of the puzzle. So, here's the overall agenda and flow for today's session. First and foremost, we'll spend some time on the nature of plan giving and asset-based giving. We'll spend time discussing the donor journey. Some of this will probably feel like old hat to you, but it's important to understand that process that a donor works through and how this particular type of stewardship fits in. And then we'll spend time on identifying and engaging these prospective plan giving donors. We'll spend time on meaningful and long-term engagement. This is where I think some organizations struggle. We'll talk about practical application, key takeaways, and this is a webinar and this is going to be shared with you. So if you have questions, please respond via email. You'll see my information at the tail end. Happy to engage with you in discussing this topic a little bit further, but really excited that you're here and really grateful that you are wanting to dive into stewarding plan giving donors well. So first off, let's just touch on what planned giving is. So we have spent about 25 years at Apex on the topic of planned giving and have narrowed it down to a couple different key things. So for us, and this is how we'll talk about planned giving through this presentation, planned giving is a strategic and meaningful way of donating to charity during a donor's lifetime and as a part of their estate plan. It could be either or, often it's both and it connects their financial decisions with their personal values. And often it has a long lasting impact because these gifts tend to be the most sizable gifts that these donors give to your organization. And the goal often is to support your mission and often communities that they are in living in and engaging in. So let's touch on planned gifts today versus legacy gifts. So gifts that come in that would be considered planned gifts now are typically going to be for donors that have diversified assets and maybe higher net worth. When I say diversified, it means donors have more than just cash and they have access to liquidate those assets perhaps before they pass away. So when I say diversified, I'm thinking perhaps they have a stock portfolio or they've intentionally invested over the course of their lives. Retirement might fit into this, especially when we're thinking about qualified charitable distributions from IRAs. It might be a business, it might be properties, rental properties, real estate that they've purchased. It could be a really unique collection of art, but their assets are diversified. Higher net worth is something that we could spend some time on. It's not always critical for a donor to do a non-cash gift today and have extremely high net worth, but likely they're going to be higher than perhaps our average to small level donors. Often they possess some type of financial flexibility to make an immediate or a near-term planned gift. These gifts, as I've mentioned, can include stock, real estate, could be life insurance that they no longer need to offset something in their estate, could be business interest, other complex assets. And oftentimes these donors are engaging on a semi-regular basis, not always, but often with financial and estate planning advisors. Now let's touch on the future planned gift types. So when we're thinking about these donors, oftentimes we're thinking of donors that have the ability later in life, probably at the time that they pass away, that they can leave a gift to your organization. So they may or they may not be high net worth, but they are exhibiting high affinity to your organization. Oftentimes, they've supported financially, they've volunteered, they're showing up to your galas, your events. They have shown over time that you are a priority. They're advocating for you with their friends and their community, and they're doing their best to continue to elevate the great work that you're doing. Oftentimes, these types of gifts are made through beneficiary designations or bequests as a part of their estate planning strategy. And typically, that engagement level is high, which reflects a deep personal, values based, and philanthropic connection. Key takeaways here is that both donor types benefit from personalized stewardship and tailored engagement that align with their capacity, their motivations, their connection to your mission, but both matter. So planned giving can be part of our conversation with donors when it comes to major gifts, when it comes to campaigns, and when it comes to their estates and that final legacy gift that they might be able to leave with your organization. So why on earth does long-term management matter? Well, one, it's the long game. So oftentimes when we are beginning to have conversations with donors about planned gifts, it's going to take time. If someone is choosing to liquidate an asset, it's usually going to take time. It takes strategy, it takes involving key advisors. And when it comes to estate gifts, remember, they are choosing to remember your nonprofit and perhaps a handful of others, like they are family or others that they love. And so that process often takes time as well. So it's really important that we steward them well, that we engage, that we keep those relationships going, because there's such a lengthy period of time or an extended period of time that we are engaging with a donor before that gift often comes to fruition. Plan revisions. So at any point in the process of liquidating or gifting an asset, and particularly when it comes to estate gifts, donors' plans can change. And so regular care and contact and ensuring that that donor feels valued, that you see them, also keeps your organization at top of mind. These gifts are nuanced. So they often require and involve advisors to facilitate, to run numbers, to talk through taxes. Um, and they oftentimes incorporate choosing to support family perhaps a little bit differently, or perhaps it impacts their current financial picture a little differently. So it's nuanced, it can be complex, and we should go in recognizing again, it's going to take time. And so we probably are not going to get answers if we check in every week, but if we are consistently touching base, checking in over the course of a couple years, and then of course over their lifetime, that's really important. And then lastly, stewardship. This is all about stewardship. So proper stewardship helps build donor confidence, and it encourages additional planned gifts. Sometimes donors will create an estate gift, and then because something in life happens or there's a liquidation event, they fulfill that estate gift while they're living. And then they commit another estate gift. And sometimes they'll fulfill that while they're living. And so we also have to recognize that a part of the work is meeting the donors where they're at, recognizing what they can and can't do today, and also recognizing that our situations personally, just like our donors, they're going to change over time. And so that stewardship allows us to also be in the know and be that partner with our donors as they are thinking about their own wealth, as they're thinking about generosity, philanthropy, engaging the next generation, who knows? But stewardship allows us to be a part of the conversation and provide value when needed. So very high level, just wanted to talk through the donor journey. And so for those of you that are newer to fundraising, my hope is that this perhaps inspires some new ways of thinking. For those of you that have been doing this for a long time, this may not be as critical because you know it already, but it is actually quite critical. So oftentimes when we're thinking about a donor and their initial engagement with our organizations, interest is going to be the first step. This is where the donor is learning about your organization's mission. They often are going to be motivated by values, legacy, perhaps, and they're beginning to find connection between what's important to them and what's important at your organization. Now, as we're starting to move that donor forward, there's this cultivation period of time. This is where that relationship with the donor deepens. You, perhaps as the gift officer, start to get to know them a little bit more, and you can invite them more intentionally to think about specific gifts. You can invite them more intentionally to events. Oftentimes, there's more frequent touch points. So one-on-one meetings, perhaps you're shooting them an email after an annual report comes out, but you're trying to stay in touch and engaged with them to move them forward, to keep them connected, to understand what's important to them and invite them more specifically and meaningfully to engage. And cultivation is very much about trust building and understanding the donor's motivations. Then we enter a commitment. So perhaps the donor, through this process, decides to make a more significant gift to your organization, or perhaps they can't do something today, but they choose to include you in their estate plan. That's where the commitment kicks in. This part of the process is often very personalized. We should be very mindful about where the donor is at, their timing, their process, their readiness. And it's also important to be clear about gift options, recognizing that the goal is that we want what's best for the donor, and we want them to choose to do that in a way that supports our organization. And so it's often really helpful to bring options to the table. Talk about tax benefits. You do not have to be a tax advisor or a CPA to understand that there are tax benefits to different types of giving strategies. And then, of course, impact is a part of this as well. And then lastly, there's stewardship. So this is where there's ongoing care and appreciation after the gift commitment is made. Often we share donor stories, there's recognition, the events, activities, cards, there are regular updates, and we're really desiring in this stage to maintain that long-term relationship. And it's quite possible in this stewardship phase, after a donor has committed a non-cash or an estate gift, it's not uncommon that they continue to support your mission. And so that stewardship, again, recognizes that even though they've made this really large current gift, or they did something meaningful in their estate, that they're still a part of the annual giving work we're doing. So how do we identify these types of donors? What makes a good planned gift prospect? I value and think that a huge part of this work is found in curiosity. It's found in asking strategic, open-ended questions to better understand the donor's intent. So I encourage you to find your own voice here, right? I've included some examples. So you could ask questions like, what motivates your giving to our organization? Or how do you envision your philanthropic legacy? Or I heard you mention that you're thinking about how you'll be remembered by your kids and your grandkids. I'm curious, like, where does generosity fit? Or you've been a supporter of our mission for the last 25 years. How does that fit into your meaningful legacy? What life experiences have shaped your values around giving? Better understanding what's going into their decision making and where did that all start? And how do you see your support impacting our mission long term? Sometimes I'll hear gift officers talk about endowing giving. Sometimes I'll hear them talk about more pointed or specific times when a donor might choose to give a non-cash gift. So before the sale of a rental piece of property, before they're working on their estate plans, before there's sale of a business, things like that can also be indicators for curiosity and strategic questions. The biggest thing when we are in this phase of curiosity is to frame questions to reveal intent without pressure. It should be about building trust, rapport, better understanding them so that you can invite them more intentionally to give, perhaps more strategically or in smarter ways. Be really mindful in this stage to avoid those yes and no questions. Questions about why, how, what's important. Just big open-ended questions can be really powerful. So what are you listening for. So when you're having these conversations, or you're just casually at your gala and you're in conversation, these are things to be paying attention to. So uh, indicators of readiness, they're consistent, they're loyal, their giving history shows that they've been a participant for a long time. Perhaps they're increasing their giving amounts, or there have been major recent gifts. Engagement in volunteer activities or event participation, they're regularly doing this, they're increasing, they're inviting their friends, their colleagues. Conversations mentioning estate plans, wills, trusts, liquidating events, that should always be a big flag. We miss that all the time. And then if they're in the process of financial planning. If there are life changes like retirement or widowhood or inheritance, or perhaps they've married off their final child, those are all life events that matter. I would say the first grandchild entering the picture tends to change things a little bit. So those can be other key moments to listen for. And then truly, it's amazing how many donors, especially those that are in their late 70s and beyond, I hear conversations shift to legacy a lot more readily. And so, if there is a conversation around being remembered, or them thinking through how they want to make a big impact, maybe they want to see that impact while they're living, those can be indicators that we should be paying attention to when it comes to legacy giving. Values-based conversations are always helpful. So again, as we're exploring options and interest and curiosity around the donor's desire to support your mission in these more significant plan giving ways, here are some things to also pay attention to. Um, you are going to want to, and you're probably already doing this, but align giving opportunities with donors' core beliefs and their legacy goals. You'll want to emphasize that gifts can fulfill personal aspirations and support mission aligned goals. So, again, it's about fit, it's about timing, it's about what they're interested in and what is going on at your organization. Share stories that resonate with their values, that demonstrate results. We are seeing with more consistency that donors, particularly those that are in this plan giving space or are younger donors, they care a lot about impact and data. Respect donors' journeys and timing. Offer opportunities that fit their financial or their family context. Things like a charitable remainder trust might not be the right fit for all donors, but it could be the right fit for a family with numerous children, or a family that has a variety of spending habits, or a family with minor children, right? Depending on the needs and the situation, a specific vehicle might be a great fit, and we may want to introduce that to them. And then continue building relationships to foster that long-term partnership. If it's a no today, that does not mean it's going to be a no in 4 years. It could just be a timing issue. All right, let's talk about some basics in stewardship. So for those of you that have been doing this work for a long time, this probably is going to feel familiar, but hopefully it's stirring up some memories and reminding you of the great work you've done in the past and that you might be able to pull forward as well. So, what is stewardship? It is way more than thank you, which is often where it starts in our minds. So, it's the acknowledgement and the handling of the gift. If we have a really clunky receipting process, or we don't enter anything or even get to that for numerous days or weeks, that's a problem. That's a part of stewardship. Obviously, it is about expressing gratitude. It's about creating personal connections through conversation, through expressing care, interest, remembering. That's a part of why we take notes after meetings with donors, so that we remember that last month they asked to wait for a little bit because they were going on a trip to New Zealand, or their first grandchild was going to be born, or they just spent the last 3 months following their grandson around playing basketball. Whatever it is, um, taking note and then connecting personally shows that you see them, that you are listening. That is not just about you. Stay engaged with these donors, and do it without asking a gift. Not every interaction should include an ask. Actually, most of them shouldn't. Provide ways for involvement, and it does not always need to be about money. Who is involved in stewardship? So this is where I think organizations and leaders sometimes struggle. So stewardship really is everyone's business. So if you are working at a nonprofit or you have a nonprofit, for example, a hospital system and the foundation that's connected, or a senior living community, and all of those that are providing support to those seniors, in addition to those in the advancement team, everyone technically is a part of stewardship. Those relationships directly play into a donor's interest, a grateful patient's interest, a student or alum's interest, a graduate from a program that you serve, their interest. It's going to be connected, right? So sometimes we need to do some reminders of our broader staff that we are a nonprofit, that they play a role in that, celebrate that, share ways that they can really easily invite donors and participants to engage. Now, obviously, the fundraising team definitely play a big role in stewardship. The finance team does, right? This is often where that data tracking, getting it correct and accurate, the receipting, the reports at year end, that's going to be important. The person that answers the call when something is funky, they're a part of the stewardship process as well. Our CEOs, executive directors at organizations, the presidents, whomever's in the top level position, and those that are next level, they play a big role in stewardship. Board members, volunteers play a great role, and I think we sometimes underutilize them as well. So examples of stewardship. Obviously, saying thank you is a big one. Gift acknowledgments and receipts, phone calls, in-person meetings, events, acknowledging life events, saying happy birthday. When someone passes away, for example, what does it look like to remember and celebrate the memory of that family member or loved one, the month each year that they passed away? We often do a great job of sending flowers or cards or whatever when there's a loss, but do we also remember in those years after? And are we honoring that memory, assuming we have the right relationship to do that? It can be an invitation to volunteer, to have a site visit or a tour. It can just be a casual check-in call. Could be about celebrating accomplishments. Hey, I saw you in the newspaper or the article here, or I saw you on social media doing blank. Don't get creepy, but there can be great ways of celebrating and honoring the accomplishments of our donors and supporters. It could be the annual fund report and financials. I geek out over stuff like that, probably because of the line of work that I'm in. I love it when I get a personalized sticky note on top of an annual report that says, hey, page 6 talks about what we discussed in our last meeting. I love that. Is that for everyone? No, but is that meaningful to someone like me? Totally. It can be about sharing the impact of the gift. And then it can be about a million other things. So it can be, on Valentine's Day, sending out cards to all of the all the members of your giving society. It could be sending a special note with the name of a book or an article that you read that made you think of them. It can be a forwarding of an email. Again, I thought of you when I saw this or read this or whatever. Um, Stewardship is very much about expressing gratitude, yes, but it's also about seeing the donor, recognizing their uniqueness and connecting in that way, which requires relationship and knowing and remembering. And it's not something that we should just do when we have time. It's something we should really build into our schedules. Otherwise, tyranny of the urgent takes over every single time. So, practical donor touch points. It could be educational webinars or workshops. So, these are key things you might be able to invite donors to engage in. Personal phone calls and thank you notes, invitation to special tours, events, legacy societies, regular newsletters featuring donor impact stories, one-on-one meetings with specific members of the team, whether it's yourself or yourself and the president. It could be anniversary and milestone recognitions, transparent reporting. Um, and these touch points, some can be mass in nature, meaning numerous people are receiving them. They can also be personalized. And so being thoughtful about a blend of these is important. Something that I think we forget, especially for our higher engaged donors, those that have done major gifts, those that have been consistently engaged for a long time, those that are considering an estate gift or are considering a non-cash gift, feedback can be a great stewardship mechanism. Letting your donors have a voice, letting them have influence into the work that you're doing is powerful. It brings them inside the tent, closer to the team. So ask them things like, what did you think of our recent event? Or what suggestions do you have for us? We're considering X, Y, and Z. What do you think about that? Have you seen our newsletter? I'd love your feedback. We've been sending this report for a few years. What do you think of it? Send, to a select group of your top donors or ones that really like providing feedback because you paid attention and learned that they do. Invite them to look at your annual report and give you feedback, redline it. Now, always be clear when you're gathering feedback that you can't take everything into account, but that you'll do your best to take their feedback along with a handful of others and integrate what you can. So, the role of trust, timing, and values. So, trust is very much at the foundation of our donor relationships, and it is built through transparency and consistency and honoring their intentions and remembering who they are and being honest when something funky goes on. It's essential before you ask for an estate or an asset-based gift. Timing's also very critical. We have to recognize that decisions often require time, like just a length of time, so months or years. We also have to respect donors' readiness. We shouldn't be rushing. We can do a lot of seed planting. Hey, I thought of you for this, or did you know? Or you mentioned that you're planning on selling your business in 2 years. Just wanted you to know that there are some great strategies out there. Um, I know that you mentioned working on your estate plan this year. Just wanted to check in on how that's coming along. I know it can be one that we all delay. Do you need any support in that, or have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Use donor engagement cues and life events to also guide timing. So there are often key moments in our lives where we are primed and ready to talk about these more significant gifts. And there are times in our lives when we are not in a place mentally or our finances are in a funky place. And so we have to be mindful of what is going on in our donors' lives. And then lastly, values. We all know values play a big role in donors choosing to support our missions. They also play a big role in donors choosing to make more significant gifts to our nonprofits. So donors give when their personal values align. We just have to remember that. And if they don't, ask why not? Or if they did at one time and they seem not to, inquire, get curious, what's going on, what's changed, what are you concerned about? Um, when donors are willing to share that and not just drop off the face of the earth, it means they care. And so, even if it's uncomfortable or we sometimes feel like we're on an apology tour, it's important to listen because if they're willing to share, it does show that they care about your mission and that there's potential that they'll re engage at some point. Frame giving opportunities around shared belief, long term goals, and understand and honor that every donor is a little bit different. Their motivations are going to be unique, and we have to recognize the nuances in that as well. So, this meaningful and long term engagement, why does it matter? Well, there is research around this, and we're going to dive in this specific topic into estate gifts, particularly. So, when it comes to a donor choosing to remember your nonprofit in their estate plan, meaning they've added you as a beneficiary designation on retirement accounts or life insurance, or they've included you in their estate with a percentage or a specific dollar amount, that's called a charitable bequest. Research shows that when a donor chooses to do this, it increases their annual giving, or their annual giving increases by 77% after they choose to remember you in their estate. On average, that's more than $3,000 per year. So sometimes we're in conversations with our board or leadership, and they don't quite understand why it's taking so long, and is it really worth the investment? Not only is the gift at the end of life going to be far more significant than their current giving, usually, but their annual giving tends to follow suit. Why is that? Because they're remembering you like a child. They're going to care about you being there. They're going to be invested in your future because they care. They're saying, hey, I want you to receive 10% of my estate. Okay, well, if that's true, then I want to make sure you're still here. I want to make sure that your mission is still in alignment. I want to engage, participate, invite others in. There's a different type of buy-in. Next, strong long-term stewardship nurtures deeper loyalty. It creates cumulative gifts and advocacy. Legacy donors often remain engaged donors up until their final years. And gift realizations frequently occur in those final 5 years of life. So just being mindful of stewardship all the way till the end. And lastly, while 69% of donors change their wills, only 25% change a gift in their wills. Now, that's still relatively high that they're going to change the name of a charity in their estate plan. That is why stewardship matters, right? If they feel that you got your gift intention form and they've committed their estate gift and then they never talk to you again, right? If you think of you, if you're that donor, are you going to feel cared for? Are you going to want to keep that gift in your estate plan? You may not. And so stewardship all the way through the donor's lifetime is going to continue to affirm that relationship and decrease the chances of them changing their estate plan. How do we maintain momentum? So it's wise with our estate gift donors and those that have chosen to create a meaningful non-cash gift today. We have to maintain momentum. And I usually recommend 6 to 8 touch points a year. Some of them can be more automatic, but at least half of them should be pretty personalized. So thank you calls, expressing that gratitude regularly, special, unique invitations that are elevated, welcome notes when it comes to Legacy Society membership, uh, having unique special events specifically for them. Maybe you tack on a coffee before a morning session or a happy hour at a different point in time connected to a gala. Impact stories are huge. It connects the donors to other stories of impact. And create committees and create feedback loops and invite them to participate using the skills that they have to benefit your organization and to keep them engaged. Okay, so the donor has made a commitment. What happens? What do we do? So this is now that stewardship after. So key steps after the yes. So these are like right away actions that you should be taking. Collaborate with advisors. So engage with their estate financial, legal advisors, align those gifts early, facilitate smooth communication to ensure that that gift structure and donor intent is honored. I just received an email yesterday from a donor who said, hey, we talked through these things. My understanding is this should be in my estate plan. I just got the drafts back from my attorney and it doesn't seem to be included. Would you take a look? Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to tell the attorney how they should switch it, but I will highlight things that seem off and bring up conversation and make sure that the donor's intentions are in alignment and articulated. Provide clear information on organizational policies and reporting. Then we have the drafting and management of gift agreements. So there should be a formal gift agreement in place, specify terms, restrictions, timelines, ensure the donor's intent, their gift valuation, legal compliance, all of that is clearly documented. And once that agreement has been signed, it is not like done, check, put it in the file cabinet, never look at it again. Every 2 to 3 years, you should be revisiting that agreement, particularly those gifts that are not going to come into existence until the donor passes away or at a later date. Internal documentation and coordination. So this is where your systems sometimes will start to fall apart. And so we want to make sure that you are tracking this in their records. Make sure that your CRM and finance systems are documenting it appropriately. Communicate these commitments promptly to relevant teams. So development, finance, legal, whoever needs to be involved. Track gift milestones and follow up to support eventual gift realization. All of these pieces are also part of stewardship. But they're also very important for our internal systems. While we like to think that we are going to be around forever, most of us recognize we're not, but even if we plan on being at an organization for 10 years, if that donor outlives us and they have an estate gift commitment, we need to make sure that it's documented in such a way that someone can step in when you're not there and pick things up, know where things were left off, and continue to steward this donor well. All right, now there are some key ways that we can engage with our donors. Now we're talking here specifically about those legacy donors. And these also create frameworks and systems to alleviate some of that individualized pressure to engage with these donors uniquely. And this would be a legacy society. So some considerations for legacy society. What are you going to call it? Maybe it's just a plain old legacy society. Maybe it's the 1862 society because that's when your organization was founded, or it's the Bell Legacy Society because there's a bell in the middle of your campus, and also the founder's last name was Bell. There's an organization like that. But think creatively about this society and connect it back to your mission and to your values if you can. How are members included? What is required? Is it a documented estate gift? Is it a donor that chooses to gift minimum of $100,000, whether that's fulfilled now or during their lifetime or as a part of their estate? Is there public recognition? What does that look like? If a donor doesn't want to be recognized, how are you honoring that? What makes membership special or meaningful? What are the unique perks that they're going to get? Some will be right away when they become members, but what does that look like over the course of the next several years or the rest of their lives? How much time is this going to take them and you? And segmentations by gifts and size amount. Is there going to be any unique elements here? So minimum thresholds, maximum thresholds. I will say my earlier example of 100,000 might knock out some of our really long-term donors. So maybe it's an either or. It's 100,000 during life, or 50,000 during life, or 10,000 during life, or 1 million, I don't know, or a gift out of one's estate. That's meaningful. Anytime we attach specific amounts, we risk people self-selecting out, even if they actually have the potential to do that gift. So we have to be really mindful of what we're communicating. So in legacy societies, often there are three key elements. There's recognition, there's engagement, and there's impact. So recognition is celebrating your donors. It's outside strength for supporting. It's the ultimate faith in your organization. It's everyday thank yous, right? You're celebrating, you're honoring. Engagement is about that deep, meaningful relationship. It's unique insider opportunities. Perhaps there's unique future giving potential opportunities. Maybe they get educational invitations that others don't. And then impact. This is about planning for future expectancies. So this is, hey, donor, thank you so much for sharing this. This is now what we can do because we know that a gift is coming in from you. It, of course, supports stream of income. It can help you navigate unexpected boons or these really large gifts that come in. You kind of know what to expect and can plan for it. I'm working with an organization right now that anticipates, because the brother of a sister that passed away, he's managing the estate. His intentions are to give a big portion of the estate to this organization. Now, they've known about this gift now for over a year. It's allowing them to both steward the brother well, but also planfully think about how does this fit within their next 3 to 5 year goals, and how does it fit within their endowment? So it allows organizations to plan more intentionally and to partner differently. Obviously, these types of gifts also provide stability during uncertain times. All right, so this next one, we hear wrestlings at organizations all the time, to wall or not to wall. So what does physical recognition of Legacy Society members look like? This is tough because what we do today impacts future generations, future leaders, future Legacy Society members. And so being mindful of how are you recognizing and what's required? What type of documentation is needed to get recognized? The timing. So, what's the duration for listing someone as a Legacy Society member? What happens if for 10 years no one gets added to that list because it fell through the cracks within the advancement team? What spaces? So, where do you have that you can keep adding names? That isn't a really complicated maintenance issue or challenge. What do you do with unknown gifts? So, utilizing the board as champions of planned giving can be really helpful. Equality, watch out in this. I'm working with a couple organizations right now that are navigating this. When an heir perceives that their loved one is not getting the same treatment as others, what does that look like? Or there were no naming right processes in place years ago when their grandparent received the name of a specific room, and now that room doesn't exist anymore. And that individual, that grandparent actually never made a gift. They just were friends of someone important. Well, what does that look like when the heirs say, hey, we want our name on a room? You can't just remove it, but their parent or grandparent never really were a donor, right? So thinking through equality, thinking through structure, best practice, who's going to be doing the updating? Is the wall big enough? If you run out of bricks out in the entryway, what do you do? It's okay to do something, but being mindful about the long-term impact and the management and the maintenance is important. So current physical spaces for estate gifts. So during life, what does it look like to have a naming rights? So if a portion of the gift is given outright, do they get naming rights? If the bulk of it isn't funded until they've passed away, it's wise to have if-then clauses in place. Um, can they reserve prominent places? What does annual support expectation look like? So when physical spaces are named during life, we have to be really thoughtful about the process and the system that's in place and what those requirements are. When a donor passes away, what do those physical spaces look like? So, are there recognition events? Does the family get invited? Are there unknown donor considerations? What if a donor wants to be anonymous? What does that look like, but the family doesn't? Prevalence of spaces, longevity of the naming. So we have to be thoughtful about the current systems that we have in place. We also have to be thoughtful about the future and how are we creating a system that can withstand time. Then we have events and special treatment. So this is the rolling out the red carpet. Stewarding plan gift donors is critical. So plans can change. You want to ensure that their standing remains. Studies show plan gift donors increase lifetime giving, and there's recognition of future impact during lifetime. So when we roll out that red carpet, it should be in communications, it should be through relationships, events, access. But how do we elevate their experience as a donor so that they feel seen and to encourage other donors to participate, right? It's not always just about those individuals that are in the society or that have committed an estate gift. It's also about those donors that haven't yet seen themselves in it. And we want them to see themselves in it. Communications and relationships. So this is about the touch points throughout the year. How do you build the relationship? So here on this slide, feel free to pause the video and take a screenshot. This is just an example of a stewardship and communication touch points calendar. So in the winter, spring, summer, fall, um, and whatever your version of this is, if you're not in the upper Midwest like I am, but what do touch points look like? And how are you engaging with your donors, your legacy, your committed? donors intentionally. As I'm imagining, you are starting to hear these relationships are key. They should be protected, they should be nourished. So visits, aim for at least one a year. Holidays and personal events, just a note goes a long way. I'm a big fan of sticky notes. I have so many, always here. I love throwing them onto articles, newsletters. I'll print things off, send it people's way. It's a little note, but it really does help them feel seen. Insider updates, let them hear news from you first. Maybe they get a sneak peek at annual statistics a month before it goes live. And then personal invitations, follow up on any mass outreach with an individual message. When it comes to events and access, elevate their relationship with your organization through these meaningful opportunities to participate. So when you're thinking about an event plan, or if you're deciding if you want to have one, consider what can you show that would be unique and interesting? What timing works best for your audience? Consider both the time of year and the time of day. I have an organization that we've worked with for the last couple of years, and they unintentionally only ever planned their legacy experiences for members that were over 70, 65 in the morning. And they did a lot of events and activities over happy hour for their younger donors. At some point, some of the older donors said, hey, like we also like happy hour. Like we don't always just want to get together for coffee in the morning. So being mindful, asking for feedback on timing can be really helpful and insightful. What sort of budget is possible? What do you have to work with? Events can be expensive, both time and money. And so being mindful about what you have to offer. And is it a standalone event or do you tag it onto something that already exists? I would say that's often a very wise idea for this group. And how can you highlight your mission and gratitude? Those two things always, both and gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And here's what we're about. Here's something interesting happening. Here's what we're trying new. And then special access with these individuals. So finding opportunities to elevate these donors' experience can be as simple as building on top of what you already have. So early access or admissions, discount rates, special seating, skip the line privileges. Access should be tied to the mission and be easy to connect back to your work. So just a couple things to highlight here in terms of case studies. We just have some examples that we found online that we really, really liked. So the University of Nebraska Foundation created this informative one-pager that walks new scholarship donors on what to expect following the creation of their scholarship. It's a really great example of setting expectations, of thoughtful stewardship, and solid invitations. This here is a Legacy Circle welcome letter. What we loved about this is that instead of a one-time acknowledgement, they sent this welcome package. They had regularly planned giving mailings, invitations to events, and again, they set some expectations with their donors. And then here's just a great story. So when a long-time annual $10,000 donor named Stewart expressed interest in including the nonprofit in his will, they responded promptly, but only received a verbal promise. How many of you can relate to this? You just couldn't get them to fill out that form. Over the years, the CEO kept in touch through annual meetings, maintaining a personal connection. And after Stewart's passing, careful communication with his daughter revealed that an estate gift had indeed been made through logistical issues, though logistical issues delayed the funds. There was warm, respectful stewardship, which honored the donor and honored the daughter, but ensured the nonprofit received the legacy gift. What is important here is that even though some donors do not want to document a gift that they intend to make in their estate, that verbal commitment does matter. And it did allow for, and often allows for, these beautiful estate gifts. So sometimes we get really hung up on policies and systems that we have in place that we want our donors to follow, and sometimes they just won't. And so maybe they don't become a member of the Legacy Society because that formal signed document's critical to that, but you include them on this list of donors that have committed verbally, and you still steward them really intentionally. So before we wrap up, wanted to pull together some key takeaways that I'm hoping are helpful for you as you think about how do you implement this. So estate and asset-based giving requires long-term relationship building. So it takes thoughtfulness, it takes slow pace. So how do you, in the midst of all of your busy, frantic work, which I totally get, how do you build in intentional time to steward and engage these donors well? Use strategic open-ended questions to uncover donor intent, focus on values, life events, legacy goals. If this is something you're not as comfortable with, that is totally okay. You can grow this skill, you can grow this muscle. So practice. I do it all the time with my friends and family. When I learn something new, I surface it. I ask them what that felt like. I ask questions. So engage, practice, and really become comfortable with those open-ended questions and become comfortable with the pause. Most people don't think really fast on their feet. So when we ask a question, give them a moment to think about it before we jump in with a follow-up question or clarifying question or thought. Building trust depends on authentic and personalized stewardship. And so how are you building out a calendar of touch points that is authentic to you, to your organization, that's unique to your style as well, and then is personal? Tools like donor journey maps and CRM systems are vital for tracking interactions, understanding their readiness, pulling reports, planning in timely ways, relevant outreach. So if your CRM, if you're great at the relationship stuff, but your CRM is less than ideal, it's probably worth putting some time and energy into that. And that data purity is really important for long-term success of your organization, particularly with these types of donors. Values-based conversations that connect donor aspirations with mission impact with mission impact foster deeper emotional connections and encourage long-term support. So values lead these types of gifts. And then maintain momentum before a gift commitment. So stay engaged. You want your donors to feel valued, build that trust. All of those steps are going to set the stage for future plan giving conversations. And like I said, a lot of our work on that non-cash giving side of things is about listening, asking questions, planting seeds, and encouraging creativity and strategy. I hope this has been helpful. As I mentioned, I'm Christy Coulter with Apex Legacy Consultants. You can find my LinkedIn information here. We also have a download for you. One topic we're seeing a lot when it comes to these types of conversations is, well, what's the difference between different generations and how they're choosing to give, what they're thinking about, what their strategies look like. And then we're getting a lot of questions about charitable vehicles and strategies. Both of those are spaces that we could do totally additional webinars and talks on. We have some downloads here and resources that we hope are helpful for you. So grab that URL and download those as well. And then if you just in general want to get in touch with us, we love talking strategy, whether it's specifically for a donor or for your organization. And so if there's anything that we can do to support your work, please reach out. Thank you so much. We're glad you're here and hope you have a wonderful day.